Why do we care so much about what other people think? Why is one comment on Instagram enough to ruin our mood? Why can a single disapproving look from someone we barely know echo in our minds for days? Why do we hesitate to act, create, or speak? Not because the action is difficult, but because we fear it won't be approved. The need for validation is one of the most universal psychological forces in human life. It controls how we dress, how we speak, what we pursue, and sometimes who we become. Some chase approval from strangers. Some chase it from a partner or a parent. Some chase it from society, from success, from numbers on a screen. And others chase it from a past version of themselves they still feel obligated to satisfy. But here's the paradox. The more we search for validation, the emptier we feel. The louder we ask for approval, the quieter our own voice becomes. Today, we're going to explore a truth many people never realize. Validation isn't just a desire, it's a survival mechanism. It's rooted in biology, shaped by childhood, amplified by society, and triggered by our deepest insecurities. By the end of this video, you won't just understand why humans seek approval. You'll see how to break the cycle and how to rebuild a sense of worth that doesn't depend on anyone's applause. Let's begin. Long before social media likes, long before reputations, long before society, there were tribes. For early humans, being accepted wasn't optional, it was survival. Being rejected, excluded, or disliked could literally get you killed. So the brains of our ancestors formed a simple rule: belong or die. And this rule still lives inside us. That's why social rejection activates the same brain regions as physical pain. That's why embarrassment feels like being burned. That's why being ignored feels like being stabbed with something invisible. Our nervous system is still operating on ancient software. When someone approves of us, when they smile, compliment us, or accept us, our brain releases dopamine and oxytocin, chemicals of reward, chemicals of bonding. Approval feels like safety. Rejection feels like danger. This is why people fear public speaking more than death. It's not the speaking. It's the possibility of disapproval. It's the threat of being judged, separated, or rejected by the group. So when you wonder, why do I care so much about what others think? Part of the answer is simple: because your ancestors had to. But while this mechanism protected them, today it chains us. Because we live in a world where rejection rarely means death, yet our brain reacts as if it does. After evolution comes childhood, the second architect of our validation habits. Think about it. As children, we rely entirely on adults for survival. Food, protection, attention, comfort, everything depends on them. So our young brain learns a dangerous but logical lesson. If I please the adults, I'm safe. If I disappoint them, something bad might happen. Many people don't realize their entire adult personality was shaped by a childhood survival strategy. If your parents rewarded achievement, you learned. Love is earned through success. If your parents got angry when you expressed emotions, you learned. I need to hide my feelings to be accepted. If your parents only gave affection when you behaved perfectly, you learned. Approval is conditional. I must perform to be worthy. And if love was unpredictable, warm one day, cold the next, you learn the most dangerous belief of all. If I try harder, maybe they'll love me consistently. This is how people become lifelong approval seekers, people pleasers, overthinkers, perfectionists, and workaholics. Your childhood self didn't understand that your parents' mood, limitations, or emotional immaturity were not your responsibility. So you internalized the simplest explanation: I must not be enough. Those words sink deep. And decades later, you might still be chasing validation, not from others, but from the child in you who still feels unworthy. As we grow older, the world gives us a new teacher: society. From school to work, from friendships to culture, society trains us to fit in. We're rewarded for conformity, punished for difference. The quiet kid is told to speak up. The emotional kid is told to calm down. The creative kid is told to be realistic. The rebellious kid is told to stop being difficult. Approval becomes currency. Grades, popularity, appearance, status, performance, follower counts, likes, numbers. Society tells us, be good and we'll accept you. Be special and we'll admire you. Be successful and we'll respect you. But here's the trick. Society never defines what good or successful truly means. It keeps shifting the standard. So millions of people live in a constant loop, trying to impress people they don't know, trying to fit into roles that aren't theirs, trying to avoid judgment from people who aren't even paying attention. Approval becomes a treadmill, and no matter how fast you run, the finish line never comes. In modern life, validation has a new ally: technology. Every time someone likes your photo, replies to your message, or compliments your post, your brain releases a hit of dopamine. It's the same chemical triggered by eating, winning, or receiving a reward. But here's the catch: dopamine doesn't make you happy. It makes you anticipate happiness. It keeps you chasing, not satisfied. So the approval cycle becomes addictive. You post something. You wait for likes. You keep checking. You feel good when they come. You feel anxious when they don't. You feel empty once the dopamine fades. And then you seek more. This is why validation feels like hunger. It never stays full. And platforms know this. They were designed to manipulate our approval circuitry. The scrolling, the notifications, the intermittent rewards, the unpredictable reinforcement, all engineered to keep your brain craving the next dose of approval. Now multiply this by childhood wounds, evolutionary instincts, insecurities, comparison culture, fear of judgment, social pressure, and suddenly we have a society where billions of people are silently begging for one thing: tell me I matter. But here's the truth: no amount of external validation can fill an internal emptiness, because the brain adapts, and the same dose of approval stops feeling enough. That's why people with millions of followers still feel insecure. That's why successful people still feel unworthy. That's why people in relationships still fear abandonment. Validation is a drug, and like any drug, the more you use it, the more you need it. At the root of every approval, addiction lies insecurity. Insecurity whispers, "You're not enough. You need to earn love. You must prove your value. You must be perfect. You must perform." This is the invisible belief system that turns adults into approval seekers. Fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of disappointing others, fear of being misunderstood, fear of not being good enough. But insecurity is not a flaw. It's a wound, and every wound has a story. Maybe you grew up feeling compared to siblings. Maybe you were rejected or bullied. Maybe someone you loved made you feel insignificant. Maybe you learned to fear conflict. Maybe you were punished for being yourself. Maybe you were never shown unconditional acceptance. Insecurity is not a personality trait. It's an emotional memory. And unless you heal that memory, you will keep seeking from others what only you can give yourself: acceptance, worth, permission to exist. The truth is, approval doesn't cure insecurity, it reinforces it. Because every time you get validation, your brain says, "See, I needed this to feel good," which means the cycle never ends until you break it consciously. Most people don't realize how expensive approval is. It costs your authenticity because you keep shaping yourself to please others, your boundaries because you say yes when you mean no, your creativity because you fear making something others won't like, your peace because you replay conversations in your mind, your confidence because you depend on external confirmation, your identity because you become whoever people want you to be. Approval seeking slowly kills your true self. You start living someone else's life, someone else's expectations, someone else's dreams. And the tragedy is, the people you try so hard to impress usually aren't thinking about you at all. They're too busy worrying about who's thinking about them. We live in a world where everyone is afraid of everyone else's opinion, and no one realizes how rarely those opinions even exist. You don't break the need for validation by force. You break it by understanding yourself. Here are the 5 pillars that rebuild internal worth. 1. Awareness. Whose approval am I really seeking? Most people aren't actually seeking approval from strangers. They're seeking approval from someone symbolic: a parent, a past bully, a former partner, society, a childhood version of themselves. Ask, who am I still trying to impress? 2. Inner safety. I am allowed to exist without permission. Your nervous system must feel safe being authentic. This comes from grounding, self-talk, and emotional validation. There is no healing without internal reassurance. 3. Boundaries. No is a complete sentence. Every boundary says, I value myself. The more boundaries you set, the less approval you need, because you stop outsourcing your worth. 4. Identity. Who am I when no one is watching? Approval seekers don't lack confidence. They lack self-definition. Define your values. Define your standards. Define your direction. Confidence flows from clarity. 5. Self-approval. I choose myself before anyone else. Every time you do something your heart believes in, even if no one notices, you strengthen your inner approval system. Self-worth grows quietly through small, consistent acts of self-respect. Humans seek validation because we were built to, because survival once depended on it, because childhood shaped it, because society amplifies it, because the brain rewards it, and because insecurity feeds it. But here's the truth most people never hear. You will never feel free until you stop outsourcing your worth. Approval is sweet, but it evaporates quickly. Praise is addictive, but it never fills the void. External validation is a bonus, not a foundation. You are allowed to exist without applause. You are allowed to choose without permission. You are allowed to be disliked and still be worthy. You are allowed to disappoint people and still be enough. The day you stop chasing validation is the day you start living, not performing, not pleasing, not proving, living. Because the deepest form of freedom is being able to hear your own voice, louder than the echoes of everyone else's. And the greatest approval is the one you give yourself. when no one is watching.